My parents expect me to take over the family business, but I have other plans. They've been grooming me to run the family business since I was a kid, but I have dreams of my own. When I brought it up, they acted like I was betraying the family. I still remember the morning I woke up with a strange mix of excitement and dread, a feeling so subtle at first, like the calm before an unexpected storm. My name is Amanda, and at 32, I've spent my entire life balancing my own creative dreams against the heavy expectations of a family steeped in tradition. I live in a modest apartment on the outskirts of a bustling Midwestern city, where every day is a testament to hard work and stubborn independence. As a freelance designer and copywriter, I built a life that thrives on innovation and individuality. Yet, no matter how many projects I pour my soul into, my family insists that I follow the proper path. Taking over the family business that has been the backbone of our legacy for generations. Growing up, my father, an imposing yet dignified man, always made it clear that our family's enterprise was not just a livelihood, but a sacred duty. Family gatherings were dominated by stories of past triumphs and the unspoken mandate that one day I would inherit the company. I recall my childhood vividly. While other kids played, I was enrolled in business-adequate classes and expected to learn the tricks of the trade from a young age. Even as I developed my own interests in design and creative writing, the expectation was constant and unyielding. "You have a gift, Amanda," my dad would say, "and with it, you're to continue what we started." But for me, those words always felt like a chain. It wasn't until recently that the conflict truly began to simmer. One lazy Sunday morning, while sipping coffee and browsing through emails, I received a group text from my older siblings. "Remember, Dad's meeting is at 10. Don't forget, you're expected to be there to learn." The message read, its tone casual yet laden with obligation. I sighed and stared out the window, my mind a swirl of memories. The countless afternoons spent in boardrooms with my father. The time I had to postpone a major design project to attend a family strategy session. The subtle yet relentless pressure to put the family business before my own ambitions. That day, after a particularly long morning at work, where I just wrapped up a campaign that I was proud of, I found myself wandering through the trying to clear my head. As I walked past coffee shops and bustling streets, I couldn't help but feel that something within me was shifting. I recalled a conversation with my best friend, Lauren, just a few days prior. Over drinks, Lauren had teased, "You're amazing, Amanda, but why do you always let them make you feel like your dreams are just a hobby?" Her words struck a chord deep. Within me, I'd always known I was different, that I harbored ambitions that went far beyond spreadsheets and profit margins. Yet every time I mentioned my creative projects or my desire to strike out on my own, I was met with sighs and statements like, "It's all part of the family plan." That night, as I sat by my window, watching the city lights shimmer like distant dreams, I made a silent vow. I was done being a pawn in a game that wasn't mine to play. I realized that my time, my creativity, and my very identity were not for sale to the highest bidder, even if that bidder was my own flesh and blood. Deep down, I knew that a reckoning was coming, and I was determined to be the one who rewrote the rules. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with conflict, but for the first time, I felt ready to choose my own destiny, regardless of the cost to family tradition. From as early as I can remember, the family business loomed like a giant shadow. Over my life, I grew up in a home where dinner conversations were punctuated by discussions of profit margins, legacy, and duty. While my peers were encouraged to dream freely, I was gently but firmly reminded that one day I'd inherit our company. A business built on decades of hard work and sacrifice. I vividly recall a turning point during high school. While my friends debated what college to attend, I was enrolled in a seminar on corporate management. I couldn't help but feel that my creative impulses were secondary to the obligations that had been meticulously planned out for me. Since childhood, even as I found solace and passion in graphic design and writing. The weight of tradition pressed down on me. Family reunions became a battleground where my unconventional choices were subtly mocked. I'd often hear, "You should focus on learning." The ropes at the family office or creative work is all well and good, but it won't keep the lights on. Each comment, though wrapped in a veneer of familial concern, chipped away at my resolve to pursue what truly set my soul on fire. I began to document these moments in a leather-bound journal, capturing every instance where my dreams were dismissed. I wrote about a birthday party when I excitedly presented a logo design I'd created for a school project, only to be told, "That's cute, but business is about stability." Not flash. These recollections were painful, yet they ignited a growing awareness. My life was being steered down a path that wasn't mine to choose. As I entered my professional life, I managed to secure a respectable freelance career. Working on projects that allowed me to express my creativity, every new assignment was a small victory, a rebellion against the predetermined future my family had envisioned. However, even with success, the underlying expectation remained. I was meant to eventually take over the family business, to become the heir apparent in a legacy that prioritized tradition over innovation. It was during one particularly exhausting week, juggling deadlines and late-night client calls, that I realized something had to give. I was constantly sacrificing my passions and personal time to appease a legacy that wasn't my own. The internal conflict grew more acute with each passing day, and I began to see that the business legacy, rather than being a blessing, was a shackle, preventing me from forging my own destiny. Then came the moment that shattered the delicate equilibrium I'd maintained. I was working on a high-profile design project, one that had the potential to catapult my freelance career to new heights, when I received an unexpected phone call from my older brother, Mark. His voice, usually jovial and supportive, was now tinged with urgency. "Amanda, you need to come home," he said. My heart sank as I listened to him explain that our parents had announced an impromptu meeting at the family headquarters. I knew something was wrong. This wasn't just another routine discussion about business. When I arrived at our family's ornate office building, I found my parents and several relatives gathered in a conference room. The atmosphere was thick with tension, my father's stern expression and my mother's tight-lipped silence told me that something had been brewing for a long time. After a few minutes of awkward small talk, my father cleared his throat and, in a voice that broke no disagreement, said, "It's time we discussed your future in the family business." A murmur of agreement passed through the room, but I felt my pulse quicken. I had always known this day might come, but I wasn't ready to surrender my dreams just yet. I recalled every instance where I'd tried to explain that my passions lay elsewhere. Every time I mentioned wanting to work on independent projects or pursue creative ventures, and every time my family's response was to remind me of the legacy I was supposed to inherit. Now, in that room, the expectation was laid out like an unyielding decree. My brother looked at me with a mixture of pity and resignation, as if he were caught in the same trap. I could feel the walls closing in as my parents listed the countless reasons why I should join the family business: financial stability, tradition, honor, and why my dreams were nothing more than fleeting fantasies. As I listened, a deep sense of betrayal welled up inside me. I loved my family, but I was suffocating under the weight of their expectations. I remembered the nights spent working tirelessly on projects that brought me joy, only to be told that they were not practical. I recalled the subtle, dismissive comments at every family dinner. In that moment, the realization hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had to choose between a life dictated by legacy and the one I envisioned for myself. The tension was unbearable, and my heart pounded with the fierce need to break free. That evening, after a stormy meeting filled with pointed remarks and unyielding pressure, I fled to my room. I locked myself away and poured my emotions into my journal. Each word a cathartic release, each line a vow to reclaim my life. I am not here to live someone else's dream, I wrote. I deserve to create my own legacy. With that declaration, the seeds of defiance were firmly planted. I knew that I had reached a tipping point. I wasn't willing to be molded by a legacy that wasn't mine, and I began to plan my next move, a move that would shake the very foundation of my family's expectations. In the days that followed, I immersed myself in both self-reflection and strategic planning. I reached out to my closest friends, people who had always encouraged me to follow my own path, and listened to their stories of overcoming similar pressures. Over countless late-night talks and long walks in the park, I began to see that my struggle wasn't unique. It was a universal conflict between individual passion and collective tradition, determined to assert my independence. I started taking small but deliberate steps. I rearranged my schedule to prioritize projects that ignited my creativity, even if it meant declining invitations to family events that were solely focused on the business. I began setting boundaries with my siblings, politely refusing to handle last-minute requests to help out at the office or attend impromptu meetings. Every act, no matter how small, was a quiet protest against a fate that had been preordained for me. Then came the moment I decided that the next family reunion would be the stage for my declaration. I spent hours drafting a speech, a heartfelt, unflinching account of the sacrifices I'd made and the dreams I had nurtured in secret. I carefully listed the countless times I'd been reminded that my creative pursuits were less important than the family business. I rehearsed my words until they became a mantra in my mind. I am not defined by a legacy that isn't mine. I choose my future. And I will no longer be silenced. Every day leading up to the reunion, I fortified myself with small acts of self-care. A new morning routine, extra time spent on my art. Even a weekend retreat to clear my thoughts. I was preparing for more than just a confrontation. I was preparing to reclaim my identity. I knew that when the reunion arrived, I'd have to stand tall in front of a family that had long taken my time and talents for granted. My heart pounded with a mix of fear and rube. I pounded with a mix of fear and exhilaration as I envisioned that day. A day when I would finally speak the truth and set my boundaries once and for all. The day of the family reunion arrived like a turning point etched in time. Our sprawling family estate, usually filled with light-hearted chatter and nostalgic reminiscences, was charged with an unusual tension. As relatives gathered in the elegant dining hall, where portraits of ancestors watched over us, I could feel every unspoken expectation weighing on my shoulders. After a long, strained meal, I rose from my seat. The room fell into a heavy silence as all eyes turned toward me. With a deep breath, I began. I need to say something that's been on my heart for far too long. I spoke clearly, recounting the endless years of being forced to take over tasks that should have been shared, the missed opportunities to pursue my own passions, and ultimately the crushing pressure to eventually run the family business. My voice, though trembling at first, grew stronger with each word. I love you all, I declared, but I am not here to live out a legacy that wasn't my choice. I have dreams of my own, and I refuse to sacrifice them for the sake of tradition. The room erupted in a chorus of gasps, murmurs, and even a few supportive nods. My younger sister looked away, ashamed, while my father's eyes glistened with conflicting emotions. A cousin blurted out, "So you're just going to abandon the family?" As if my decision were a betrayal. I met his gaze steadily and said, "I'm not abandoning you. I'm choosing to live a life that's truly mine." Every sentence was a raw, honest outpouring of years of pent-up frustration. The tension reached its zenith when I demanded, "If you truly love me, you'll respect my choices and let me follow my own path." For a long, agonizing moment, silence reigned. It was as if time itself had paused to witness this moment of reckoning. I saw tears welling in my father's eyes, and for the first time I sensed that he might be beginning to understand the price of imposing his expectations on me. In the immediate aftermath, the atmosphere shifted from shock to chaos. The dining hall became a battleground of voices, some sympathetic, others angry, and many caught in the crossfire of old loyalties and new truths. I retreated to a quiet corner, trying to absorb the impact of my words. Relatives whispered among themselves, some offering muted apologies, others launching into defensive tirades. My heart ached as I realized that while I had finally spoken my truth, the fallout was far from over. Later that evening, as the reunion gradually dispersed into small clusters of heated discussions, I stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars shone indifferently above AITA, and I couldn't help but feel both a pang of loneliness and a spark of relief. I called my best friend Danielle, and in a hushed, tearful conversation, I recounted every detail. The humiliation, the pain, and the bittersweet taste of liberation. You did what you had to do, she assured me. Even if it hurts, your voice matters. Her words provided a sliver of comfort amid the storm of emotions. Back inside, I witnessed a particularly poignant scene. My father, isolated in a quiet hallway, conversing in low tones with a relative who has been my secret ally. Their voices barely audible hinted at regret and a long overdue realization that perhaps our family had been too rigid, too dismissive of individual dreams. Though I wasn't sure if this would lead to lasting change, it was a sign that my stand might be sparking a shift in old mindsets. I spent the rest of the night wandering through the empty rooms of the house, each step echoing with memories of past sacrifices. The weight of my decision pressed on me, yet there was also a strange lightness, a feeling that I had finally taken control of my destiny. I wasn't certain what the future held, but I knew that I had made the right choice in reclaiming my voice. In the days that followed the reunion, I found myself at a crossroads. The confrontation had left deep wounds in our family fabric, and I had to decide how to move forward. I began by one-on-one conversations with those who had shown support in a quiet cafe. I met with my younger sister, who tearfully admitted that she always envied my courage. I never knew how much she struggled, she whispered. I'm sorry. Her apology, sincere and unexpected, filled me with a cautious hope that perhaps healing was possible, even if it would be a slow process. I also reached out to my father privately. Over a long, measured phone call, I explained that my decision wasn't meant to break the family bond, but to allow each of us to live authentically. I respect our history, I told him, but I can't let our legacy dictate my future. I need to follow my own dreams. His response was a mix of sorrow and tentative understanding, a glimmer that maybe, with time, we could redefine our relationship. Finally, I made a personal vow. I would no longer let my family's expectations confine me. I began to set firmer boundaries, politely refusing to participate in tasks or gatherings that undermined my individuality. I also invested more time in my career and creative projects, channeling the emotional energy from the fallout into building a future that was unequivocally mine. In one final cathartic moment, I sat at my desk and wrote a letter to myself, a declaration of independence from the past. I am not defined by what you expect of me, I penned. I am defined by the courage to pursue my own dreams, no matter the cost. With those words, I felt a profound sense of closure. The final decision had been made. I was stepping forward into a future where my time, my passions, and my identity were my own to cherish. While the scars of the past might linger, they would serve as reminders of the battles I fought and the strength I gained. In the months following the explosive family reunion, my world began to reshape itself in unexpected ways. I threw myself into my work, accepting new projects that challenged my creativity and allowed me to express my true self. My freelance career blossomed, and soon I was recognized not just for my skills, but for my unwavering commitment to authenticity. Every project, every client compliment was a small victory, a validation that I was on the right path. I also rediscovered the joy of living on my own terms. Mornings became a sacred time for reflection. I took long walks in the park, savored quiet moments with a cup of coffee, and reconnected with old friends who celebrated my independence. I even took up painting again, a hobby that allowed me to translate my turbulent emotions into vibrant, dynamic canvases. These acts of self-care, though seemingly simple, were powerful assertions of my right to live a life free from exploitation. Therapy sessions helped me process the years of suppressed resentment and the raw pain of the reunion. My counselor taught me that setting boundaries was not selfish, it was an act of self-respect. With each session, I felt the heavy burden of family expectations lighten, replaced by a growing sense of empowerment and self-worth. As time passed, the ripple effects of my confrontation began to alter our family dynamics, albeit slowly and imperfectly. Some relatives started to see the value in my perspective. At a subsequent family dinner, I noticed my younger sister offering a genuine apology for always taking my time for granted. An uncle, who had once dismissed my feelings, quietly admitted that he had never realized how much I sacrificed. While not everyone embraced the change, these small gestures gave me hope that even entrenched traditions could evolve. I began hosting gatherings on my own terms, inviting those who respected my boundaries and sharing with them the lessons I'd learned. These intimate events, filled with laughter and heartfelt conversations, became sanctuaries of support and understanding. I realized that while I might never fully mend every fracture in our family, I could create a new narrative, one where my voice was heard and my choices honored. One cool evening, as the sunset painted the sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink, I found myself on the balcony of my apartment, reflecting on the tumultuous journey that had brought me here. My journal and wrote a final entry that encapsulated everything I had learned. I am no longer defined by the presentative expectations of others. I have the power to choose my own destiny, to honor my dreams, and to live my life unapologetically. Each word was a testament to the transformation from a life of silent sacrifice to one of bold independence. That night, as I walked through the quiet streets, the cool air whispering promises of new beginnings, I felt an overwhelming sense of freedom. The scars of the past were still there, etched into my heart like battle wounds, but they no longer dictated my future. I had reclaimed my time, my creativity, and my self-respect, and I knew that I would never again allow anyone to treat me as a default caregiver or a pawn in their expectations. Today, I stand as a living testament to the power of setting boundaries and living authentically. I am not just the person my family expected me to be. I am the architect of my own destiny. I continue to build a career that challenges and inspires me, forge relationships that nurture my spirit, and, most importantly, honor the truth that my life is mine to shape. As I close my journal and step into tomorrow, I do so with a heart full of gratitude for the battles that made me stronger and a spirit unburdened by the past. I am Amanda, a woman who dared to stand up, to speak her truth, and to claim a future defined by her own dreams. And that, above all else, is the most powerful victory of all.